Join one of Pennsylvania's established paranormal investigation teams on their YouTube channel, Phantom Detectives LLC, and follow them on social media. Phantom Detectives LLC is a professional paranormal investigation team from Oxford, Pennsylvania. They conduct investigations from historical societies to homes, businesses, asylums, and more. The team provides free home investigations to more robust investigations with the public. Each member is well trained on history, educated on all 8 areas of the paranormal, and will bring an excellent attention to detail to every investigation. PD LLC will be conducting free information forums at libraries all over Pennsylvania. During these sessions, they will go over evidence from past investigations, how they conduct investigations, and answer questions from the public. The team will be making numerous trips across the United States to conduct investigations in America's most haunted locations. Dream locations include Waverly Hills Sanitarium, the Winchester House in San Jose, Myrtle's Plantation, and more. Dr. Hans Holzer is one of their biggest inspirations. PDLLC is a non-profit organization offering unique services to the public. Their goal is to demystify the supernatural and reduce fear of the unexplained. Every evidence review will be kept confidential and will not be released without the client's consent. A report will be generated for every client after each evidence review is completed. To reach Phantom Detectives LLC on their websites, please go to www.phantomdetectives.org, psychicmediumautumn.com, afterlifefrequency.com, and ERC2explore.com. That's ERC, the numeral 2, explore.com. To reach them from the Rockies East, please call 484-790-9941. That's 484-790-9941. To reach them from the Rockies West, please call 717-219-4585. That's 717-219-4585. To reach their case manager on their wildcard line, please dial 601-490-0929. That's 601-490-0929. For their lead investigator, please email ercrfw@gmail.com. That's ercrfw@gmail.com. Want to take a ride? From the high plains of the great Northeast, close to where the country was born, here is Phantom Detectives, LLC. Details shared by our clients will be handled with the utmost care. In addition, they will create a file cabinet of every case investigated. The group will be fully insured for the safety of Phantom Detectives LLC's clients and members. If you are interested in having your home or business investigated, feel free to fill out the contact form and the team will get back to you. Phantom Detectives LLC welcomes our followers on Instagram, Flickr, Tumblr, YouTube, Twitter, and on MeWe. They will be going to some amazing haunted locations in 2022 to launch the group. These include Pennhurst, the Betsy Ross House in Philadelphia, Gettysburg, Fort Mifflin, the Anselma Mill in Chester Springs, Pennsylvania, Sanderson Museum in Chadsford, the Fulton Opera House in Lancaster, and many more. The clients, fans, and followers with whom they build relations will be their most important people. Without any of them, Phantom Detectives LLC would not exist.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Nick Bartell, Editor-in-Chief for Techno Warriors TV, and welcome to another paranormal investigator team interview, a paranormal team interview. We have Joshua, who's the director from Phantom Detectives LLC, or you could say Phantom Detective Paranormal. He's based out of Pennsylvania, and they also do investigations in New Jersey and everywhere else. The cool thing about this, one of their so you said one of your people was featured on the Coast to Coast?
Yes, I was on with Coast to Coast AM, my mentor's old boss's show in June of 2023, I was on with George Norrie for 2 hours and did a fantastic interview and took call-ins and all that. So we've been on coast to coast. We've been on many top radio shows, featured in magazines, and more.
Yeah, so the cool thing, so basically, Phantom Detectives has been on coast to coast, and that's a big UFO ghost radio show. Also, if you've heard of John Ventry, just barely interviewed him. You can check out his video. His video was delayed because of my lungs and everything, and technical issues. Don't you love technology? Technology can be a jerk sometimes, especially
Yes,
computers. Computers are assholes.
yes,
And it's like and like you're working on and I'm sure that's with technology and the paranormal, because
absolutely.
ghosts love to screw with technology.
Oh
They love
yes,
to
I
drain batteries. They like to make computers reboot or crash. Um, and yeah, it's pretty crazy. The ghosts, and there's actually a difference between ghosts and demons.
yes.
John Ventry, who you should check this out, ladies and gentlemen, because this episode has been brought to you in part by uh, John Ventry's one of John Ventry's books, The Haunting of John Ventry. You can check out on Amazon, and you can even it even have the physical version and the digital version. You can check out the link in the link description below. Also, we're almost to 5,000 subscribers, so we're about ready to give away that Fortnite Battle Pass. So get ready for that. So if you play Fortnite, make sure you subscribe to their channel. Put your, if you want to, you can even put your Fortnite username in the comments. And when we hit 5,000 subscribers, I will select a winner. Now, Joshua, how long have you? And Joshua has been doing and has had this team for quite a long time, so it's really, really cool. Also, our other sponsor for this episode is Diary Coffee Teas and Bobas, located in Holloman, New Mexico, and White Sands Missile Range. They even have what's called the Techno Warriors TV Boba, and it's really cool. It's an energy drink with 728 milligrams of caffeine. It's in our colors and everything, and it will give you it'll give you my energy. Just don't drink it before bedtime. But yeah, big shout out to Christopher Newhart and Gwendolyn Allen. Big shout out to you guys. Also, a big shout out to a couple of fans I have. Big shout out to Carl Scales. A big shout out to Riker and Ezra. A big shout out to Cindy from 7-Eleven. Thank you so much. Big shout out to everyone out there who supported our channel. And that is the fan giveaway. Also, I want to also give a big shout out to the Mutual UFO Network. So big shout out to you guys. Now, ladies and gentlemen, now that we got all the shout outs and announcements out of the way, let's get into the gravy. It's time to cut into the gravy and the cake. It's time for the interview of Phantom Detectives LLC, aka Phantom Detectives Paranormal 2023. Without further ado, Joshua, take it away.
Sure. So my name is Joshua Chairs. I am the director and founder of Phantom Detectives LLC. We're a paranormal investigation organization that does investigations in Delaware, New Jersey, Maryland. We investigate properties that are over 100 years old. We actually do historical societies, homes, businesses, asylums, and more. And everyone asks me the common question is, how do I get my start in the supernatural? And of course, as a kid, I was born in Pennsylvania, outside in Philadelphia, and I got my start in the supernatural as a 4-year-old kid watching Unsolved Mysteries with Robert Stack. And of course, there was an episode on there called The Haunting of the General Wayne Inn. The General Wayne Inn is a very historical it's called the Wayside Inn. It was created in 1704. Famous dignitaries such as Marquis de Lafayette, George Washington, Edgar Allan Poe wrote several stanzas of the Raven there. Also, of course, it was used as a place for travelers to go outside of Philadelphia in the 1700s. So when they needed to get there by horse, it was also used, I believe, as a stop for the people and the relatives that when they did the Constitution and, of course, the Declaration of Independence in 1776. So the Haunting the General Wayne Inn has years of paranormal history, and according to the episode of the Unsolved Mysteries, there was supposedly one night patrons were sitting at this bar back in the late '80s, and this TV was started going clockwise when the episode of Unsolved Mysteries appeared on television.
Whoa, that's
So
crazy.
so it actually started going clockwise according to the old episode. And then, of course, one of the attendants that worked at the bar area server, I guess, was going out to work to come back, come from his car. And according to that, like when he was out in his car back in the late '80s, the car was completely no keys inside of it. It was locked up, and it was going. The car turned on by itself and was beeping a horn. Never heard that before. And then, of course, people started seeing like Hessian soldiers in the basement area of the General Wayne Inn. So that was pretty crazy. And of course, much like everybody else, I started watching Leonard Nimoy in Search Of. He played Spock on the original Star Trek. If you guys know that show very well, Leonard Nimoy's In Search Of kind of started this all for me. So once I started, watching those shows, I started going into the '90s, and then of course started reading every book by Dr. Hans Holzer, who is known to be the father of American ghost hunting. Dr. Holzer, of course, with his trans medium Sybil Leek and Ethel Myers, would go to investigate places back in the '60s and '70s. And I read almost every book of his that I could get my hands on. He was absolutely an amazing, he kind of helped start the American ghost hunting as we know it. And of course, Dr. Holzer's cases started Ghostbusters on, the Ghostbusters TV series, the show and series that we know today, based on Dr. Holzer's cases of supernatural phenomena. So, of course, much like every other kid, when I started growing up in the '90s, I started reading books on UFOs too, started researching different cases with Betty and Barney Hill, and of course, Whitley Strieber's UFO abductions and all of that. So it was pretty amazing. And then, of course, and then one night on the AM dial, we put on the late night radio in the '90s, I heard this voice that was unlike any other host that I ever heard. And I heard this voice of Linda Moulton Howe, she would do reports from this show. And all of a sudden I heard this voice say Coast to Coast with Art Bell and, Dreamland with Art Bell. And the voice that he had captivated me. And I was really amazed at how he could talk to people in every hour of the night, truck drivers and different people. And they would call in and share their paranormal experiences to Art. And Art always talked to them respectively and be able to draw out their story. And of course, two of Art Bell's sons are friends of mine, Kevin Yanaga, and who's a sushi chef, and Vincent Pontius, both live in Philadelphia, an hour from me. So I got two of his boys right near me. Coincidence, perhaps. And then, of course, in 2002, I actually went back to the General Wayne Inn. My late mentor, Mike Colleen Mayer, at the time had a local Philadelphia paranormal investigating team at the time. And factor in ghost hunting back then wasn't as advanced as it is now. You might have had a Geiger counter, an EMF meter, a digital camera, and a voice recorder. That was about all you had. So you had to work with what you had. So in the basement area, I went to where supposedly people reported seeing this Hessian soldier. I took 3 consecutive photos, which is something I started doing, and there's one of those photos had these really weird green and yellow streaks of light. I took it to every film company from Kodak all the way to local other places, and they all came back with the same thing and said there was something weird about this photo. We don't have any reasonable explanation. There was no exposure, no light that could have caused that to happen, And so when that happened, of course, I went to college at Westchester University, majored in business administration. And then, of course, ghost hunting shows started popping out all over television. Ghost Hunters was kind of the first one. The plumbers from Roto-Rooter, Jason Haas, Grant Wilson, who, of course, are friends of mine. I know them very well, met them multiple times. Great guys. And, of course, the plumbers from Roto-Rooter started doing cases and stuff like that. And then, of course, 2007, Paranormal State comes out on television. It's like about these students from Penn State who, investigate supernatural phenomena. And I got one of the former members working with me now, Holly Falsh, who was Elfie Music's assistant. Elfie, of course, was on Paranormal State. And of course, Ryan Buell started investigating cases with Heather and Katrina, where they would just go all over places. And so it was an amazing show. It lasted 4 years. Chip Coffey was on it, and other, world Michelle Bellinger. So all these famous people were on this show. And then, of course, in 2008, Ghost Adventures comes out, with Zach Bagans, Aaron Goodwin, that kind of helped me get influence. So watching all these shows, I think I loved how they would collect data and then use the scientific method, try to understand if this place was haunted or not based upon all the evidence. And, of course, showing the evidence at the end, which really neat, and interviewing the witnesses. So I think what really got me interested is when in 2014, I filmed I was watching this episode, season 1, episode 2, called "The Haunting of Summerwind." Summerwind is this old uh, fishing lodge. It used to be called Lilac Hills back in the day. You could stay there for $4.99 a night,
Four
and
ninety
a
nine. That's $4.99. That's as much. Sorry for interrupting, but that is much. It's about as much as a Big Mac, almost as a Big Mac.
Absolutely, and what's amazing is Mr. Lamont, of course, he actually, of course, they complained. The guy was the original owners of Summerwinds. Guy name was John Frank. Of course, Mr. Frank was from Akron, Ohio. But 2 years later, he sold the property to Mr. Lamont. And then Mr. Lamont, of course, reconverted. He had Chicago architects Thomas Tamaj and Vernon Watson to actually reconvert the mansion from a fishing lodge. And then in the 20s, the servants who worked for Mr. Lamont, he was a U.S. Secretary of Commerce under President Herbert Hoover, very historical home. So the maids would say, "Hey, the place is haunted." And Mr. Lamont's like, "Grow up, there's no such things as ghosts." And then one night, according to the Carver Effect, a paranormal experience, a book that was written in 1979, Mr. Lamont him and his wife were eating dessert one night, and they would this basement door flew open, revealing the ghostly form. And he took his black powder pistol, fired 2 shots, missing the ghost, never returned to the mansion. So Mr. Lamont died in 1948. The mansion actually went back to a lady named Lillian Kiefer, and Miss Kiefer bought it, and then she would have owners like that would give it, she would lease it out to different people and it would go back to her. And then it wasn't until 1969 when the Henshaw family moved in. This is where the activity really escalates. So the Henshaw family saw this place and they had to have it. They were Arnold Henshaw and of course Ginger Henshaw and their 6 kids moved into this place. And this when they had it, like weird things started happening. So according to the story, they would have contractors that would come work on Summerwind, and tools would break down. Like they would have example, a heater would break down or a furnace, and the furnace would basically wouldn't work one day. All of a sudden, when the contractors would work on it, the tools would disappear completely. And then of course they had these windows in this property, and they had to nail all the windows shut. So basically the windows would fly open on their own, and they had to hammer and put nails in them.
Oh,
So
wow.
that was going on. And then of course they would hear like voices, disembodied voices in different rooms, flickering shadows, all kinds of stuff. And then what happened was what really called Summerwind when they were staying there in the late 60s was when it really started escalating. It's when April. So Mr. Henshaw, of course, his real name was Jim Hill. He was a construction worker. He had a stepdaughter because Ginger, they're kind of like the Brady Bunch. He had the husband had 3 kids and the wife had 3 kids. So they came together. So Mr. Henshaw took his daughter April, who is his stepdaughter, his 10-year-old stepdaughter, and asked her to go into this crawl space. Now, here's a story from Summerwind that's going to gore your hair. So she goes into this crawl space as a 10-year-old kid, and she, Mr. Henshaw, actually, shined the light so she could see, and she reveals seeing this skeleton with black hair, and she screamed, horrified, found the skeleton. The Henshaws called the police. The next day, the police went to investigate. The skeleton wasn't there. And this is when the story of Summerwind got worse, according to the haunting episode. So what happened was Mr. Henshaw started losing his mind and started playing the organ to all hours of the night. So he started playing this Wurlitzer organ that was in the house since the Lamont days. And the family was so terrified of him doing this. Supposedly he had a mental breakdown, and then the family had to stay all in one room, like in the living room of Summerwind. And of course, it's reported according to the book in the episode of The Haunting, that Mr. Henshaw actually had to, basically the family had to stay in one room. Of course, Ginger tried attempting suicide. So after that happened, what was wild was after the episode of A Haunting, so she gave the place back. He was committed the husband was committed to a mental institution in Canada, never returned. And of course, Ginger, gave the property back to Miss Kiefer. But what was interesting was Miss Kiefer, Miss Kiefer was contacted by Ginger's father, Ray Von Bober. Mr. Von Bober Senior was a popcorn vendor from Chicago. So he said, "Hey, I'm going to make a play of this go again in Summerwind." So he tried to make a go again in Summerwind, and much like the Henshaws, they ran into similar problems. And of course, his son Ray, who is Ginger's brother, Ray Jr., came out of the army, so he was helping his father. The Henshaw, the Von Bobers, who was, of course, Ginger's maiden name was Von Bober. So they went ahead and had similar problems. They never stayed inside Summerwind. They had a trailer on the property. So by having a trailer, they would start working, painting, doing construction, much like the Henshaws did. But they ran into similar problems. appliances going missing. And then they, according to the book, they'd have the original blueprints. They got those from Miss Kiefer, and when they would measure rooms from the original blueprints, supposedly the rooms changed shape. That's
Oh,
according to the
wow.
story. According to the story and the folklore of Summerwind. So after they changed the rooms changed shape from the blueprints, appliances would break down. Unfortunately, much like the Henshaws, they ran into funding problems, so they gave it back to Miss Kiefer around 79. And then, of course, Miss Kiefer died in 85. And what happened was, then it was bought by a couple by the name of Harold and Babs Tracy. My friend Craig Nearing, of course, ran Fox Valley Ghost Hunters out there. They would do investigations on the property, and of course, according to the stories of the new after the uh, basically the other family that bought it. So basically, Mr. and Miss Tracy started. Supposedly, they were walking. Mr. Tracy bought Summerwind as a wedding anniversary present for his wife in 85, 86. So when they were walking up to the mansion one night, they reported that the mansion was actually inhaling, like taking a life of its own, and walking up the driveway. From the edge of the driveway all the way to the house.
Wait,
Never
so he
heard
was
about
actually
that.
swallowing people?
Yeah, supposedly like it was taking a life of its own. Like they reported like the actual mansion was like had colors and it was like almost like breathing and inhaling. And then what happened was in Father's Day of 1988. Now we'll circle 2 years later. They're trying to make it go to the place, but they're having a lot of problems with trespassing, legend tripping, people coming onto the property without the Tracy's permission. So the place burnt down. So what happened was, according to the property, according to the history, lightning and fire struck down Summerwind, burnt everything, wiped it out. So all that's left today are the two tall chimneys, the foundation, and the steps. So all that remains of Summerwind today are the chimneys, the foundation, the steps. So everything burnt down, the servants' quarters, the playhouse, everything on the property. And then what happened was, after that, according to, there's a neighbor that actually he since passed away. He used to live in the early 90s, late 80s. He used to live next door to Summerwind. His name was Jim, and he told
Uh-huh.
Craig about the story of Summerwind. Of the township was actually fed up with all the trespassing on the property, so the township themselves said, "Hey, there's going to be a fire." They told the neighbors that nearby somewhere there's going to be a fire on site, not to worry that the fire department in Land O'Lakes was going to be there. And according to this neighbor, was basically that the township was so fed up with the trespassing, so they took it upon themselves. They took bales of hay and they pretty much just burnt the place down and leveled it. So the Tracy's property that they had purchased was burnt down by the town. I'll send you guys a link, your listeners, a link after that. And with this article, it was pretty amazing. It was released in 2017. And then, of course, what happened was nothing happened to Summerwind until 26 years later. So here's where I enter the picture. So I went ahead, purchased the original blueprints because at the time, the brother of Ginger Henshaw, Ginger passed away in 2013, and then of course her father Ray Senior passed away in 2005. But Ginger's brother Ray had the original blueprints. He sold me. I own the original blueprints to Summerwind, which are quite hard to find. And then I started seeking out a connection to the owners of the property. So on this news feed of Summerwind, I came across Craig Nearing from the Fox Valley Ghost Hunters. Fox Valley, of course, Craig grew up in that area, and he actually was doing events on the property. So even though like the Tracy still own the property today, they started doing events on the property. Like haunted tours and paranormal investigations on the ruins of Summerwind. So
Uh-huh.
he had access to the property. So I sent him a copy of the original blueprints, and then what he did was he went ahead and started working with different contractors. So his idea was to try to take all the elements and rebuild this place from the ground up with the original blueprints, because he had the blueprints in hand. And I went ahead and sent those out. And then of course he started working with, like, he got like contact from Jeff Bellinger from Ghost Adventure. So unfortunately the ruins are still there today, but someday there's a lot of interest from a lot of people that want to rebuild Summerwind. And the project is now being headed by Craig, but I did help get them on Coast to Coast with George Norrie. I got them I got them good publicity going for the Summerwind Society. So that's ran by Craig now, and he's trying to spearhead rebuilding the mansion. So of course, what happened was in 2015, much like everybody else, I called into a radio show one night, and of course, I was trying to get my friends Craig Nearing and Kevin Malik on a radio show, and of course, it turned out to be the former producer Art Bell at that time, who
Whoa,
lives
that's so cool.
out in California. So I asked him, "Hey, would you be interested in bringing him on your show on the show Dr. J Radio Live, which is a huge show based out of
Hold on, let's
yeah,
pause for a second. I
sure,
got a Discord going off.
problem.
Yeah, and also be sure to check out. Okay, there's that. Okay, also you guys, And Phantom Detectives. There we go. All right, guys, and Phantom Detectives also has a Discord server. If you're on Discord, you could check out their Discord. I'll put their Discord in the link below. There's everything that has to do with the paranormal, UFOs, and ghosts on there, and you could actually talk to some of the team members on there. So be sure to check Phantom Detectives out on Discord. The Discord link will be in the description below.
All right. So now I'll continue calling in. So when I called into my mentor's show, he actually said, "Yeah, I'll bring him on." And of course, and the funny thing is, from that phone call, by calling into before his show started, he said, "Hey, would you guys be interested?" And funny thing, I ended up working with him years later, booking all the guests and stuff. We had an amazing run. And of course, I worked with another staff member of Art Bell, and her show is called Amy on the Radio with Amy Martin. She was Art Bell's affiliate director. So this was before I started founding Phantom Detectives. So in 2020, I said, you know what? I'm going to go ahead. I'm really interested in the supernatural. I already founded Summerwind, the Restoration Society. I worked with our staff. So now what I want to do is I want to start my own team. I really want to revolutionize paranormal investigating. So I didn't like the way my old team was progressing. So I went ahead and started getting business cards going, getting a website built from the ground up, getting created social media pages, and just started like much like anybody else that would start out like locally, and pretty much just started getting recruiting people that really fit what I wanted to do. So what I did is, of course, after I found the Phantom Detectives, I brought my former team member who has since left the team over from my old team, and she kind of served as our first lead investigator. She was a very talented person. She was a Civil War reenactor. She did reenactment again. She's a sound engineer. She did a lot of like she was played in bands and music, so she's very talented at like tech and all that. So we did our first paranormal investigation in December of 2020 at this place called the Sanderson Museum in Chadds Ford. The Sanderson Museum is the Christian Sanderson Museum. Is pretty amazing. It's a museum that houses Christian Sanderson, of course, was a collector of many letters. He used to get letters from famous dignitaries like Sitting Bull, Shirley Temple, Helen Keller, just different dignitaries that he knew. And he would host square dances. He was a radio show host and stuff like that. And what was amazing was the first investigation that we did was we set up a DVR camera up in the violin room, which is supposed to be known to be very haunted. And Mr. Sanderson's violin collection is still on display there in the museum. And right around that time, literally, like we had like the DVR, the NVR, the security camera went off. Then we had the EMF meter batteries completely drained. We had brand new 9-volt batteries in them. They completely drained out. And then there was this huge orb right on this picture. So I was like, hold on a second, this doesn't appear right. So when you have like the security camera sensing something, you have the EMF meters being drained, and the orb, that has to be something, because you got layers upon layers. And then of course, we captured an EVP that also during that first investigation. Then, of course, in January of 2021 roll around, I think it's when it really started escalating, get even better, because then we scheduled our second investigation at the Mill of Aunt Selma in Chester Springs. The Mill of Aunt Selma, of course, is the oldest continuing operating mill in the United States. It dates back to 1747. It was the first mill that does corn, wheat, rye, different things. It was founded by a guy named Samuel Lightfoot. It's called the Lightfoot Mill, of course, in Chester Springs above Downingtown, Pennsylvania. And what was amazing was we set up did a paranormal investigation, me and my team member. And of course, what was amazing was, you can find this on our YouTube channel, Phantom Detectives LLC. We set up a NVR security camera on this mill door. And mind you, me and my team member were only the ones on the property that night. This door flew open by itself. There was no wind. There was no rain. It has a timing like an old-fashioned deadbolt. You have to physically lift it up like this in order to have that door fly open. So I tried to debunk it any way I could. I have no reasonable explanation. Then later that night, when we did the investigation, my team member put a DVR security on this rope, and this rope started swinging by itself, and no one was around it. And then, of course, I was up on the third floor, and I got an EVP that said, "Go, go." And that was pretty wild, too. So for that to happen, it was incredible. So then we started adding more. We started expanding more members to the rankings. And then what we did is, Mark Anthony, the psychic lawyer, he's a world-renowned medium, world famous on Gaia TV, Coast to Coast with George Norrie. He's also an Oxford educated attorney. He's called a psychic lawyer, psychic explorer. Mark Anthony, he joined our team. He had authored several books, Never Stop, Never Letting Go, and of course his new one, The Afterlife Frequency. He joined us as a researcher. So he works with us remotely from Florida. And then what, of course, I did is in March of 2021, I decided we really needed a tech manager, someone that understood the nuts and bolts of like in teching, doing recording the investigations, interviewing clients. So I plucked someone from the MUFON world who I feel that was going to be perfect because he was fed up with the way MUFON. He started working in MUFON in Delaware. So Mr. Rick Warner brought his skills in from the UFO world into this talent pool of fan detectives. And what was amazing about him was not only, of course, was he's also the U.S. ambassador to the Italian UFO Federation, FUI. So
Oh,
by
that's
working
so cool.
so he was working with, of course, MUFON. Of course, so he's being the U.S. ambassador. He actually, has a lot of skills of like ground survey. He's got numerous certificates from his UFO research. So I went ahead, brought him into the talent pool, and along with Mark, and then I brought the Rick's debut investigation was at the Betsy Ross house, which is known to be very haunted. The first flag of the United States was actually sewn there in 1776. So this old house, of course, dates back to the time of the American Revolution. George Washington visited there, and Betsy, of course, numerous people have reported seeing her spirit and hear her moaning and different, crying at different parts of the house. And what was wild was Rick and our former team member at that time were down in the basement area in April of 2021. And there they started using their voice recorders, stop record, start record. And on one of the recordings, they actually picked up these growls, which were absolutely terrifying. I have no
Whoa.
reasonable So they picked up these growls in the basement area. And according to the history that we've been able to research, someone might have done some kind of ritual or some kind of satanic thing there. Maybe at some point in the history of the house, maybe over the last 50 years, there could have been some kind of, kind of crazy, so that might explain why. But the funny thing is, we sent the recording over to the historic Philadelphia, of course, Heather Kincaid and historic Philadelphia. And they said, well, none of our staff members report seeing anything down there. But the funny thing is, the people that visit, they do tours, actually report hearing demonic things. So why was the Paralight, one of our paralanterns, that was going off at the same time our Rick Scare Bear was going off. So that was happening. And then all kinds of crazy things happen. Of course, I got an EVP. I said, I've been here too. We actually picked up using a thermal camera, which picks up hot and cold signatures. We used that in Betsy's room. We actually might have picked up a possible apparition of her body right near near her bed. People reported seeing her spirit near her bed. And the funny thing is, mind you, in the thermal imaging camera picks up hot and cold signatures. Is a hot and heat signature. If it was living like a person like me or you, the heat signature we would appear like an orange or red, so you would automatically know if it was. But this was a cold signature, and I went to look for reflections.
So it was kind of like a FLIR camera.
Exactly. That's exactly what we used. We used a FLIR thermal imaging camera in that room, and we picked up a apparition of Betsy. And then what was amazing was in May of 2021. Then mind you, a month later that happens. We actually a guy named Leo Ashcraft. He actually there's the brand right there, DarkMatterNewz. So Leo was Art Bill's affiliate director in 2015. Leo Ashcraft, of course, created DarkMatterNewz. That was a news service that was featured on Art's show, Midnight in the Desert. Art, of course, had 15 to 20 million listeners on Coast to Coast AM in the 90s. He created Coast to Coast with Ramona, his wife, for his love for radio, his love for blowing people out of their minds, and just everything that he had. So Leo served as affiliate director in 2015. So we purchased the rights to the DarkMatterNewz name, the DarkMatterNewz logo, and the website. So we keep DarkMatterNewz. It just became a merger. So what it did was the DarkMatterNewz brand merged into Phantom Detectives LLC. So we keep it alive as like a tribute to Art's memory. And of course, after acquiring DarkMatterNewz, then we went to an event called Feminology 2020. My former team member and I in Gettysburg. So pretty amazing. What happened next was we actually so there's this guy named Bill Freeman who has since passed away in April 2022. 10 months before he passed away, though, at this event, Dave Schrader was there, from the Holzer Files. Shane Pittman from the Holzer Files was there. Jason and Grant Jason and Sherry and Steve from Ghost Hunters, they were there. I mean, some of the biggest names in the paranormal were at this event. It's ran by my friends Pam and Steve Berry, absolutely fabulous people. And what happened was Bill Freeman, we booked the investigation at the Selma Mansion. And right around that same time, like literally a day before that, I asked my friend Melissa Ferret, Cindy Kaza, she's a world-renowned psychic medium. She was developed by James von Prague, one of the top mediums in the world. And Cindy Kaza herself she recommended one of her students, Melissa Farazana, who's not here today. Melissa is one of Cindy's students, and Cindy recommended Melissa join Phantom Detectives into the talent pool. So I said, I saw that Melissa was living in the area, and I said, hey, we don't have a psychic medium on the team. So we already have we already covered the UFOs, we already covered the historical mate, which is me. Melissa joins, and her first investigation, I asked her, would you be interested in coming along with this? She's like, yes, please. So she actually started doing readings. So she made her debut in Investigation 4 at the Selma Mansion. And the Selma Mansion, of course, was this guy, pretty amazing. And she's like, immediately she started picking upon this servant named Martha or Margaret. And then I asked Bill Free, the manager, after the investigation, hey, was there somebody here named Martha? And she says, yes, that there's a historical record of the servant lady that worked in the mansion. And then what's wild was right before she walked in the house, she started saying, Lincoln, Lincoln. I'm picking up a connection to the 16th president of the United States, Abraham Lincoln. And then I went back and I just quickly flipped on my phone just to research the history of the mansion, like on Wikipedia. And I find out that Mary Todd Lincoln, she used to shop in Philadelphia during Abraham Lincoln's administration. And she used to visit the Selma Mansion when she would stop in Philadelphia. And I checked back and I find out that Mary Todd Lincoln's great-grandfather, Andrew Porter, actually was served under George Washington. So Mary Todd Lincoln's great-grandfather served under President. He actually created the House.
Uh-huh.
So how did she know that? For her to know that without even knowing any history was beyond baffled. And then when we went to go up in the one room of the third floor of the Selma Mansion, there was this toy room or this doll room, where you set up like supposedly a lot of children's spirits that have been up there. And mind you, the night that we were there, we only stayed on one side of the mansion. We didn't go on the other side on the third floor. So in this doll room, this whole entire door flew open, like this little like pull door like that you have like in a wall, flew open by itself. And then all of our various paranormal devices started going off. Our paralands going off, our REM pods, EMF meters were going off. Like we're getting like 20 milligauss, 25 milligauss spikes on our millimeter. So for that to happen, that was pretty wild. And then mind you, that night, of course, I had, of course, got my COVID vaccination, so I wasn't feeling 100%. So most of the night, I was manning the DVR camera. And what was really wild, we set up a REM pod. Of course, a REM pod is one of those little beep, 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 motion sensor devices.
Uh-huh.
And I set that up in the piano room right next to me. And what was wild was this REM pod, mind you, you have to physically walk up to it in order to set it off. And I had set it right in the middle of the room. And the minute that I would go and it was set off, I was watching the DVR camera, this REM pod would go off, and I would go walk literally in the direction of the piano room inside the Selma Mansion. Then it would stop, and then when I go back to my chair, it would continue there. So I'm like, what the heck? They're playing with me. So that happened, and of course we got several SLS spikes, and we actually got this apparition. You can see the servant lady. I'll show you the images after the investigation, but that was pretty amazing. We got a thermal capture right in the kitchen area of the Selma Mansion. So that was when everything just started trickling and our growth just started going faster and faster. And then, of course, we went ahead and rolled into the next investigation, which was pretty wild. In August of 2021, this guy, this was on the YouTube channel called Dark Hour Paranormal. So they reached out to us, a guy named JC, basically, client JC, who was actually he goes under the YouTube name Wreaking Havoc 215. So it's Wreaking Havoc 215 on YouTube. This guy actually started getting paranormal activity. He reported seeing like his bed sheets being pulled off by himself. He also reported having a lot of strange things going on, like he had markings on his legs. There's report of abduction. He started getting like actual he had like more strange markings on his legs. And he also took photos of you could see like apparitions and spirits of your alien spirits and stuff like that. So all kinds of craziness was going on. And the minute this was a residential case. This was our first residential case in August 2021. So Dark Hour Paranormal covered it for his radio show. And what was wild was the night that we entered that place, we started feeling like the wind was knocked right out of how you get punched in the gut and you're you're starting to vomit.
Yeah.
That's how we felt the minute that we went into that place. And then, of course, we would scan the ghost box. Of course, we started acquiring the different AM and FM ghost boxes, and we would scan those. And we started getting cursed at on these spirit boxes. We started getting we started picking up the spirits of two women cussing us out. We call them the potty mouth spirits. So
Party
we
house
actually
spirits?
did.
That's so crazy.
Yes.
That is so
So
gnarly.
we were getting cursed at on the Ghost box, and we were using the S box from Ghost Stop, which is pretty awesome because the S box, unlike the PSP7, PSP11 developed by Gary Galka, that one has internal storage. You can actually save up your sessions on a SD card and just play them back and see what you pick up. So we started getting cursed at, and then of course Rick was running the dowsing rods. You should see him, like he was completely level like this, and they would cross all the way like this, then pull, and they would point at different people. We picked up on the spirit of a 19-year-old kid who had took his life there. Now I'm going to have to check that back. But what's wild was when we started doing EVP time, which is we call it Phantom Time now. We developed our own EVP session called Phantom Time, and what we did was we went back and played back the audio after reviewing that investigation, and we actually got this really wild EVP that said right here. Like, Melissa asked a question, is there an old woman here? Is this her home? We got this thing that said right here. I have no reasonable explanation why that happened. And that was that we got so much evidence on this first couple of investigations. Everyone was floored.
Oh wow! So I do got a couple of questions. Have you ever had to deal with like any like spooky demonic type stuff, like stuff you'd see out of the like The Conjuring or Annabelle, where you get growling demonic voices, stuff thrown at you, things
Oh
thrown
yeah.
around the room?
Like the good news is actually coming up.
Like if you
I'm
see, do
actually
you
going
see
to be.
my background right here? Look how scary that right there. Look at my background. Look how scary that is. Have you ever seen
That
stuff
does.
like that?
Not like I'm going to actually go into that. So coming up here in next Friday, I'm going to be taking demonic cases with Paranormal Research Society's Ryan Buell, of course, who he was on Paranormal State. This is going to help me learn all the methodology of demonic cases and how to handle them. So far in our history, we've done 20 investigations and we're getting better and better. And so far, we've only had one demonic case, but that one was last November. So this client, his name was DH. He actually, we had to expedite this case. That was right around the time we did the lightship overfalls. And the lightship, of course, this is like a lighthouse on a ship. There's only about 5 of these left in the United States. And we had to expedite this case. So this client had reported seeing his kids were so terrified to go down to the basement area because they reported that they would see like these demonic, like these shadows and these demonic this terrifying voice and like go get out, kind of that kind of thing.
Oh
So,
wow!
so they reported like that and all that. So we went ahead, had to expedite this case in November 2022. We were about like 2 years in our existence. So we went ahead, reached out to the client, booked the interview. And then what's wild was when we did that investigation, all kind of crazy things happened that night that we were there. We would be down in, of course, I had set up a camera area in the basement, and the DVR camera started picking up EVPs. And one of them, if you can hear it right on our EVP section of our website, phantomdetectives.org. So if you go to the EVP section, you can hear this ghost saying, so I want you to go, 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 like that. You can hear, I want you to go. And then we also got another EVP, the DVR camera called, and I went and raised it on Audacity and cleaned up the audio. And it actually, you can actually hear the word, we actually got cussed at too. So that was
There's another
pretty
potty
wild.
mouth spirit.
Yeah, similar to the polymouth spirit case that we did in Philadelphia with the client JC. So, which was wild. Not only that was going on, but the demonic case also, we started using the SLS camera. So, the SLS camera was developed by a guy named Bill Chappell, who's the ghost tech on Ghost Adventures. So, the idea is it uses the Xbox technology, the Xbox Kinect technology on your video game console that you'll use, and it'll map it like a stick figure and draw it like an anomaly. Well, mind you, with the SLS camera, you have to fully let it you got to hold it in place and let it kind of map out everything. And what it'll do is, if something is caught, it'll pick up, tell you the temperature and all the various things. But on the SLS camera, how you have to physically hold it, and you have to be very careful with the SLS because if you put it near water bottles or chandeliers hanging from a ceiling or like anything like that, it'll map it. It'll create like a stick figure with the word anomaly. So you just got to be very careful. But mind you, we were doing this investigation in this client's home, and DH's home in the basement area, and there we started picking up these really weird black oil spills. I've never seen it since on investigation or after. And what was weird about these black oil spills were they were going all over this wall. And mind you, we also picked up a full body apparition. We took our thermal imaging camera right in the corner of this room. Melissa's saying, hey, point your camera here. So I point and clicked it, and you can see this full body apparition standing in this corner. And this was at the same time our REM pod, one of our motion capture devices, was going off. And what was wild was in this home, we also have shadow trackers, which are basically, imagine, like, what do you do? They light up and they'll point in the direction. The lights will move in the direction that something's moving unseen. We put our DVR camera right on those shadow trackers, and that thing, you can see like it light up literally in the direction that the spirit was moving. And so if you pick it up, so after we did the investigation, what we did was we completely went through, and we blessed ourselves. We said Saint Michael the Archangel prayer. So after doing the investigation, we blessed ourselves inside. So Melissa and Rick went ahead and usually there's different ways that you can cleanse property. So what they did was, I just kind of packed up all the equipment, talked to the clients while Rick and Melissa did the blessing. What they did is, there's different things that you can do to cleanse property. So they went ahead and used smudge sticks, which are, of course, sage is a Native American tradition. We do cleansings as well. So we went ahead and they went ahead, burnt sage in all the different rooms. Melissa was doing the sage part. She was saying the Lord's Prayer, while Rick was doing the holy water. So the holy water is from Israel. We use the holy water from Israel, which is a very, of course, the story of Jesus. And so we put holy water in all the doorways across. We marked them with crosses. Rick did that. And literally, I think within 30 minutes of doing the blessing and the cleansing, the place felt so much different. It felt like it was wild. Was Rick actually was he was doing, like, he was sitting in his chair just taking a quick little break with his EMF meter, and I started seeing his eyes were changing, and like he started getting like this pressure on his chest, like someone was pressuring down on his chest like this. So I went ahead and said, I said the Lord's Prayer, please, in the name of Jesus Christ, may you go and, be remove yourself from my friend. And so you could see the EMF meter spiking up like crazy. We have one of those 8+1 EMF meters. Like, there's
Is it
2,000 milligauss.
So is the EMF reader just a beep or anything, or does it just light up when there's activity?
It detects electromagnetic fields. The general idea is spirits use the fields to be able to. Now you got to be very careful, because high EMF meters can also be caused by like electrical appliances, insulation. But mind you, this EMF meter, Rick was in the middle of this room. There was no electrical lines that could have for him to do that. So if something was pressuring on his chest, I saw it. And so what we did. Do you
think it was attempting to possess him?
Yes, absolutely. So what I did was
a demonic attack.
Yes. So I was literally saying the prayer. I slowly said, I command you to leave. And Rick immediately opened his eyes and he was fine. And the EMF meter went all the way from like 2,000 milligauss on the 8+1 all the way down to 0. So for that to happen, that was pretty crazy. So that case, the good news is after the place was blessed and cleansed, the homeowners have not had any problems at all. It's been like quiet. It's been beautiful because they were so terrified.
So sorry for interrupting. Have you ever had to deal with demonic possession? Like, have you witnessed demonic possession at all? Full, actual manifestation?
Not yet. But I know I've had friends that had demonic cases. My friend Dave Juliana from the Ghost Hunter store, and of course Bill Bean, who is a world-renowned ordained minister. We haven't had any cases like that, but we've gotten contacted from our website, phantomdetectives.org, where people have. So what we've done, because we've been so busy we're growing so fast, I gave those other teams kind of handle some of those cases that have experience doing the demonic cases. So we're just so jam full right now with our growth happening. So I went ahead and we've only had one demonic case, but in the future, I wouldn't be surprised we have more as we get bigger and start expanding into more states. So the nice thing is taking these classes with Brian Buell, I'm going to get some more knowledge, because he worked with Ed and Lorraine Warren, who did the Conjuring movies, the inspiration behind those. So learning from somebody that actually has like a lot of demonic, he's going to teach us the nuts and bolts of demonic cases, because PRS, Paranormal Research Society up at Penn State, would have tons of demonic cases. So it's going to be great to sit down and pick his brain on Zoom next Friday and learn like everything that he did and all that. So it's pretty amazing.
Dude,
so far, awesome. I don't have. So I'm pretty excited about getting more and more into the nuts and bolts of it. At least we'll know how to do it and how we'll be prepared taking these classes. So I think I expect more cases to go in the future.
So do you think have you okay? So if you ever remember the Conjuring movies, or I want to give a big shout out to Reverend Bob Larson. If you ever heard of him, Bob Larson, the real exorcist. He just launched a brand new streaming service, ladies and gentlemen. You ought to check this out. If you like spooky shit, you'll want to check him out because Bob Larson, he's an exorcist. If you remember, we interviewed Salad Fang. He is a real world exorcist. You could check him out. It's in our Extraterrestrial and Paranormal playlist where this video will be. There is real demonic possession and real demonic, this is in a real exorcism. And I want to give a big shout out to Ruben Martinez and Salad Fang. Thank you guys so much for letting me, and a long time ago, we actually had the exorcism of Ruben Martinez. He talked about his experience with Bob Larson and getting exorcised. It was pretty nuts. It was very spooky. But the thing is, if you remember YouTube's big crash, remember that in 2020, I believe it was 2021, where a whole bunch of creators, lost their stuff because of YouTube servers crap in the bed. We had over 100 videos lost, and at least over 100 videos, and then we had another crash this year where we lost even around 60 videos. But I think it's just like, maybe it could be the devil, maybe not wanting to get, people help because, hey, it's like, oh, look, they're trying to make it so people will get help and get free from the devil. So it's like, and do you think, and now, as your opinion, I've talked to some people who said there's up to 75 people that have been demonically possessed. 75% of the world population. Do you think they're demonically possessed because of the time? Because, like they say, we are in the end times.
I think that demonic possession is on the increase now. Now you also got to factor in. I think that all the stories and reports you got to also factor in what is their lifestyle like? What kind of lifestyle are they living? Are they living at are they on some kind of drugs? Are they kind of medication that they're taking that's caused them to have psychological problems? Do they have a history of differ?
You can usually differ from drugs and alcohol.
Right. And
but there's usually because when I'm not here at work, I'm usually, buzzing around Midvale or Sandy. In Midvale, Utah, there's quite a few haunted places in Midvale, Utah, and quite a few haunted places in Salt Lake City. Now, if you ever heard of Palmer... Oh.
A little technical issue there. There we go.
We have an anomaly?
Yeah, I had a little... what happened was my camera was flickered for a second, but it's all good.
Okay. Good thing it didn't. That's the cool thing about OBS when you're doing an interview. If it detects a major anomaly, it stops the recording. That's really cool. Luckily it didn't stop the recording there. I think it's still going. But but it's really crazy. So back to Bob Larson. He's really, really cool. We will have him on the show in the future. We're gonna have a couple more exorcists on the show on the future. We're going to have more MUFON members on the show in the future. We'll have more paranormal teams and hopefully to get more of your people on our show as well, too.
Definitely. And especially because, I know a lot, one of my favorite exorcists, of course, if you ever hear, listen, Art Bell, of course, created Coast to Coast. Listen to his interview with Malachi Martin. This guy since passed away in 99, but he was a Jesuit priest. And it was one of the most amazing interviews that he did with Art in 96, where he went through all the process involved in the exorcism. I think he did over a couple thousand exorcisms throughout his life. And I'll try to see if I can find that audio for your listeners because, even though Art and Malachi Martin have since passed away, it's an amazing interview that really gets into the nuts and bolts of demonology and how to deal with it. So, of course, Ed Lorraine Warren, of course, had hundreds of cases all over the world. I know Tony Spare, of course, her son-in-law, who runs the society now out there. And, of course, Ed Lorraine had all kinds of strange things happen from Amityville. They did that demonic case. And then, of course, all over, the supposed story of Ronald DeFeo murdering his family. And then
he unalived his family?
Yeah, that's according to what the story of the Amityville story. Yep.
So
I think that was
that was what?
That was around the late. That was Amityville, that supposedly that was the Lutz family. The Lutz family had moved in after Ronald DeFeo had murdered his family members, and according to the story, of course, Ed Lorraine Warren had investigated that case, and of course, Amityville was going to became a supernatural tourist attraction after they did their investigation there. I think they had They had to bless and they had to cleanse somebody. One of the Lutz family members supposedly had gotten possessed.
Whoa, that's spooky.
Yeah.
Now, there's actually, now, have you ever heard of TikTok? Because I
Oh
originally
yeah,
found
we're
you
on
guys
there.
on TikTok. Yeah, that is actually where I originally found your mud. It's on TikTok. And
That's pretty
so,
cool.
yeah, if you remember that, actually, I think I sent you a message on TikTok. I sent you a message on
Yes.
TikTok saying, hey, how would you like to be on our show? Because I saw some of your stuff. And then,
Yeah.
here we are. We are doing our interview, which is absolutely phenomenal. Ladies and gentlemen, you could see a part two of this video because when they have more cases, when they have more spooky crap happen, more than likely you will see a part two of this show. Now, if it's in 2024, hopefully I survived that long, there will be a 2024 edition of this. And like, this interview, it'll be more shortened from all the, after this case that I've already talked about, but there'll even be more cases that we'll talk about in 2024.
Yes.
It's just going to get bigger. Now, would you say this Paranormal Research Society thing that you were telling me about, do you think it's like the MUFON of paranormal world? Of the paranormal world?
I think Paranormal Research Society, I have great respect for what Ryan Buell did. So, mind you, he started his group at Penn State. He used to call it Ghost Club at Penn State back in the 2002. Of course, he went to Penn State, and my best friend Gwen went to school with Heather Katrina. And of course, Ryan just started getting people to join his local Ghost Club. And the funny thing is, basically, we actually brought somebody, we just brought her in July. Her name's Holly. Holly actually worked at PRS under Elfie Music. Elfie, of course, headed her department was spirituality and occult research. So Paranormal Research Society was actually from Penn State. And Holly, of course, was Elfie's assistant. I brought her in, the Phantom Detectives, she's working with us remotely now to focus on spirituality and occult research. So she's going to help us prepare for the investigations, like calling us on FaceTime, helping pray with us, and all that. So, and of course, she might be doing some investigations with us next year when she's in our area. She's about 2 hours away, so it's great to know she's not too far away. She's not like impossibly far. So I expect this thing to get bigger because we have gotten so much traction now. We're now appearing on the biggest radio shows in the world, numerous paranormal magazines on the cover of paranormal magazines, local television now. I think it's just a matter of time before we get our own TV show. It just seems to me it's all working in that direction.
And ladies and gentlemen, more than likely, and make sure you share this video everywhere you can, because guess what? Phantom Detectives, I think it's the next Ghost Hunters and the next Ghost Adventures, because they're just going to get bigger and more intense. With technology, what it's getting, because, of course, we're Techno Warriors TV. We cover the latest on
Yes.
technology, pop culture, including extraterrestrial and paranormal stuff. So we do product reviews on technology, unboxing videos. We go to conventions like CES. We went to Halloween expos and paranormal expos. But however, we lost quite a few of that during the major YouTube server failures. And a big shout out to Disk Drill and all these data recovery companies for helping me get a lot of our stuff back. But guess what? It's like you may fall down, but you're going to come back even harder
back
next
up.
time. And you're going to come back even harder next time, and you're going to blow it out of the water. I mean, when we did Bank's interview, he got 5,000 views, which is a record-shattering thing for our channel. Before when the crash happened, Stone Paranormal, which we will do another interview with them. Don't worry, guys. We will do another interview with Stone Paranormal. We'll have our Galaxy S23. We're going to have an upgraded microphone, Rode microphone. I think it's going to be the USB-C version of the Rode Video Micro. And it's going to be absolutely phenomenal. I cannot wait for that. Ladies and gentlemen, where can people, thank you guys so much for watching this interview, and where can people contact you guys, and not just on Discord? I mean, because I'll put you guys' Discord down. Ladies and gentlemen, check out the Discord. If you love spooky crap, you're going to love their Discord.
So we have multiple platforms. I'm going to say the first one is the central hub of everything, where all of our websites are, our pages are, is the word Phantom Detectives. So the word phantomdetectives.org. So it's phantomdetectives.org. That's where the hub of everything is. So the nice thing is once you go on phantomdetectives.org, we have made some massive improvements to the page over the last couple of weeks. We made some amazing progress. We got a world-class website. Not only do we have a Discord server, but now we got a new equipment page that we just launched this week. That went live. That talks about all the equipment that we use on our paranormal investigations. We also just built a spirituality occult research, which is headed by Holly. That's her page. We also, of course, just had a new press and media page. You can see all the appearances and where we're going to be at and all that stuff. So the main website is phantomdetectives.org. That's our team website. So to reach Rick, if you want to have UFO cases investigated, or you have any questions on any flying anomalies, or you have any reports,
or even any abductions, we interviewed Russ Kellett. Dude, yes. Russ Kellett, big shout out to you. This guy, 5.3K views, almost 2,000 likes. And he's actually one of the most highest. And you know how when you get, you've seen that happen where you get a ton of views or a ton of likes because everybody loves and adores the video. The view thing or the like thing goes up and down, kind of like the wave. Yeah, the algorithm.
Yeah. So Rick's website is really awesome. I think you guys are going to love it. He can be reached if you have UFO cases. Go to the number ERC. So E as in Edward, R as in Randy, C as in Chris. So ERC, the number 2, explore.com. So it's www.erc2explore.com. So erc2explore.com. That's how to reach Mr. Rick Warner and his UFO organization. Our psychic medium, Melissa Ferrazano. Melissa is, if you need a reading done, you have questions on past life regressions, any kind of remote viewing questions, Melissa can be reached at psychic, all one word, psychicmediumautumn.com. That's psychicmediumautumn.com. If you need a reading done for your clients, and psychicmediumautumn.com is Melissa's website. Mark Anthony, the psychic lawyer, the world-renowned psychic explorer, who's working with remotely. He's going to be joining Investigations 2024. He can be reached at afterlifefrequency.com. That's afterlife, all one word, frequency, afterlifefrequency.com. And then, of course, drum roll to find this, the last one, the late Art Bell's news service, Dark Matter News. You can find that at darkmatternewz.com. So that's DARK. Matter, MATTER, DarkMatterNewz.com. This was once the news service of Art Bell's radio network.
Yep, so basically Art Bell has been reborn. Art Bell 2.0.
Yeah, so that's what I hope. And especially with his memory, we keep it, we keep Dark Matter News alive to remember him as a radio host, as a true pioneer. Like, he started all this. If it wasn't for Art, there would be no paranormal radio. Like, he was the first one.
There'd be no Hangar 1. There would be no MUFON. Have you ever seen the show Hangar 1?
Yes.
John Ventry was a host of Hangar 1. Have you ever heard of the Mutual UFO Network? A big shout out to Brian Lindley. And yes, I know my Techno Warriors TV at Gmail inbox. So drop us a line, technowarriorstv@gmail.com. That's right. Everybody has wanted a lot of people in Utah have been wanting me to interview Brian Lindley from the Utah MUFON chapter. We interviewed Gray Earl Anderson, who's the Southern California state director. We've interviewed Jesse Peak from MUFON and Linda Thompson. Linda Thompson was originally the big cheese. She was the one to break the all-time record for the most interviews on our show. And that's, and I even remember when we first started doing paranormal stuff, and UFO stuff, and, it didn't get that many views and stuff. When we started interviewing MUFON, it'd go up and down, and then just 7.2K views is on the Bart Sabrell. If you guys love conspiracies, it's Phantom Detectives also talks about conspiracy stuff, like the moon landing. Do you think we landed on the moon, or do you think it was a bunch of cap?
I think it was just a bunch of cat. I think it's all like, the government, everything that you can say, the government controls what you see, what you hear, everything that you see on mainstream media. They're all just trying to bend the truth, like, about everything that we have going on. And, funny thing is, like, I also believe, like, why not, I look at the size of our universe with all the government covering up UFOs and, disclosure is imminent. you can just see like they're just trying to do everything they can to control what we hear, what we see, and by trying to do what we can. So I believe that we've been on the moon, like we were never on the moon. I think that's just all kind of like
It's total.
like
So
a whole.
you think it's total cap that we did never
Yes,
made it to the moon?
exactly. Yeah,
Because like,
I
I
think
mean,
a lot.
look. Go ahead.
And I think a lot of that is kind of like the course of Neil Armstrong saying one giant leap for man and one giant leap for mankind and all that back in the 60s. I think a lot of that was all like the Russians were actually the first ones in space, and according to my research, they actually launched a Sputnik around 57. So for us to say that we were in space first, we weren't. We might have, they were on the space and might have been on the moon 12 years before us.
Yeah, and here's the thing: the Russians were kicking the crap out of everybody until President Nixon came on and demanded we be on the moon before the end of a decade. Dude, we just barely put Mercury into orbit, and it's Gemini. It's like, dude, chill, Nixon. Wait at least until, and you remember President Nixon and Jackie Gleason. That's right. If you remember how we got our catchphrase, it was from Jackie Gleason's The Honeymooners. Jackie Gleason and President Nixon, and we'll talk about this in a future episode. And we actually may, when we talk about the UFO sightings of John Ventry, which is coming here shortly, and I know all of you are waiting for his R2 interviews. We're working on that, but you know how computers are. The computer's been a bad boy. It does not get new hardware if it doesn't behave. So it's like, those interviews are coming soon, which is awesome. And also, we got a laptop, a really nice Hewlett-Packard Envoy laptop, okay? That this guy can take multiple drives, can go up to 32 gigs of RAM. So this guy's going to start doing, I'm going to put this boy to work too. This boy was the one that actually rendered Earl Grey's interview. That's right. This little guy did the rendering for Earl Grey Anderson's MUFON interview. So I'm really proud of this little guy for being such a good little laptop. But yeah. And don't worry, guys. We're going to have a lot of more stuff coming from Phantom Detectives. You'll even see more people from Phantom Detectives on our show, talking about their paranormal experiences and paranormal hauntings. Ladies and gentlemen, if you loved this interview and you adored this interview, all you have to do is you can hit that like button if you like this video. Hit that dislike button if you did not like this video. And if you adored this video, all you have to do is swing that subscribe button, slap that like button across the face, and pow, right in the kisser. Have an awesome day. And make sure to subscribe to Techno Warriors TV and to Techno Warriors TV Plays, our gaming YouTube channel, because I will tell you this first. We're going to be playing Phasmophobia. And because Phasmophobia is paranormal related, it actually is going to go, and this will be one of our next collaboration videos. If you guys remember, we did a collaboration video with Geology Hub because I am also a volcanologist. So I study volcanoes, and I am also a radiologist. So I work on protests, riots. I study all that stuff, explosive stuff. So yeah, thank you guys so much, because we're going to have this guy, Joshua, or one of the gamer guys from Phantom Detectives, on our show, playing Phasmophobia with us. And Phasmophobia is a paranormal video game. It is right up their alley. So, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you for the next episode of Phantom Detectives. They're going to put our interview on their website, so make sure you subscribe, because we have more from Phantom Detectives coming soon. We're going to have more of their team members on the show talking about their hauntings, abductions, UFO sightings. And the people you heard about today, some of their employees, they're going to be on the show.